welcome to Check It Out Comrade, an indie game podcast where every 2 weeks we bring you 2 indie games and tell you what we like about them. I'm Nick Glauber.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this week we're doing Euclidean and The Consuming Shadow.
It's another Lovecraft special.
Lovecraft!
It's going to keep happening as long as they make the games that you want to play. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead and talk about Euclidean first.
Sure.
Nick, tell me a little bit about Euclidean.
So Euclidean is a game released September 25th of 2015, so last year. And it is a game aimed at VR. It's sort of a atmospheric free-fall game where pretty much your only controls are manipulating where you're very slightly where you're going as you fall through some terrible Lovecraftian landscapes filled with horrible monsters.
Yes, it's an endless faller.
Yes.
Which is you'd think that's a joke, but that is a genre because there's that game. Yep. And things like that. Similar to that, it's way slower paced.
Yes.
And way bigger focus on atmosphere and immersion than actual mechanics. And that. When I first saw this, I didn't think I knew. So I suggested that we should do this. It popped up on my list, and I looked at it. And I thought it was cool. I did not quite realize it was as not VR dependent, but this is the first game. We're going to see more of these kind of cross-platform games, and I wonder how much, just like if this would just have a much bigger effect with that.
It's definitely aimed at it, but I don't think that playing it on PC with on a regular monitor takes away from what you're experiencing too much, except for the controls. I mean, I can imagine that the controls aren't really all that great in VR anyway, but especially kind of looking around with your mouse and stuff is very, very floaty.
Yeah.
So I think that those are probably specialized a lot more for VR controls.
I think that's going on. And the other thing I think that's kind of interesting, and it'll be, I'd be kind of curious to see how it works, is that so the way that this game, I think I end up liking this game. I think there are things to like about it, right? The things I didn't like about it mostly had to do with looking around, and being aware of my surroundings,
yes,
which is so much harder with a VR helmet. And it's I didn't pick this game to be, because I'm kind of a VR curmudgeon. I didn't pick this game to pick a game that makes my point for me, but this does kind of make my point for me that It's not just, your Calls of Duties or whatever that would be too hard to control with this, but this game is about kind of environmental awareness.
Yep.
And even having the mouse, which I could literally just flick my wrist and see around me in 360 degrees, it was still hard to know where threats were.
Yes.
In this version of the game. So I just imagine that being compounded when I'm literally spinning in my chair to go look, and it just being much, much more difficult.
Absolutely. But on top of that, I think that just as a design consideration, they made control very, you have very little control in this game.
Yes.
And that is almost entirely my issue with it. It does not feel fair in your ability to manipulate around all of the monsters and all of the objects that you're trying to get around. You kind of have to be so predictive as to be damn near impossible in a lot of the levels. So I think that I really like a lot of the things it does, but I don't like it as a game very much.
Yeah, I don't think I do either. It is interesting looking, and it's doing a cool thing. The problem that I had with that part is that it's not just so it's an endless faller. You keep falling. You have very little control over your movement. Movement is only kind of important because you can go through solid objects will break apart, but you just have to avoid living things.
Yeah.
And those living things, they are much more maneuverable than you. You're not really meant to dodge them.
You can phase through a lot of them, but you do have the ability to phase, but also has a downtime. That's
the problem with it. So that's my issue. Otherwise, it becomes kind of a toggleable game, like a game where there's an on state and an off state, and you're just switching between them. And that's a really simple control scheme, but you can do that. And it's no problem. You make good games like that, Tiny Wings is an iOS game that is just or even Rhythm Heaven. It's just looking whether you're touching there's a little bit more to it, but it's mostly whether you're on or off. You're just switching a binary state. You can make a game like that, and it's great. This one, though, the cooldown means that if you misjudge, when something's going to hit you, and you switch into your phase mode a little bit early, and you misjudge it, by the time that thing actually gets to you, you're not going to have any juice left.
Right.
And then that's going to be it for you, and then you start over on the level. That's my biggest issue with it. I think that even the non-control of being able to move around could be done and be fine. But if they was a little bit more forgiving with that phase control, and maybe like something like, even like I'm playing this with an okay set of speakers, but something that kind of showed you what direction things were coming from.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more clear. It would be stronger.
It has that, you know, like heartbeat mechanic that's supposed to help you out, but it so many times just didn't go off when I was near something that I didn't know I was near to.
Or even if you hit phase as soon as the heartbeat starts, that's not really when you're supposed to do it.
It's way too early, yeah.
Yeah, and then you end up in the problem where you're unfazed when the monster comes.
Right in the middle of them, yeah.
Yeah, which and that part kind of sucks. So it mechanically is like kind of a failure. What's neat about it, or like the cool thing is, you know, moving through these spaces, like the opening and stuff is really, really cool. Like you are, you're on a cliffside, you have your options menu and stuff, but then if you look at the moon gets super big and surrounds you, and you end up in this kind of weird underwater hellscape, and you just start falling. And there's this oppressive voiceover that talks to you the entire time, more or less just kind of psyching you out.
Yeah, telling you don't belong.
Yeah, you don't belong. Everything here will kill you. Like, and it is really kind of effective in how oppressive it is.
Yeah.
And after you get past the, so how many stages did you get through?
I think I got like halfway through. There was like 5 or 6, I think.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah. It is. Once you get past the kind of like very explicitly like ocean stages, and get into the stuff that's like the weird kind of like colored lights and the crumbling city and weird shapes and shit, it's really beautiful.
Yeah. The landscapes in this game are gorgeous. Like that is by far my favorite part, is the actual just level portions.
Yeah.
The monsters, you know, they're all just geometric, and you know they do bring about some life to this you know, lifeless architecture, but I don't like their design nearly as much as I like all of the environments you're falling through. They're really, really pretty.
The environments and the use of color. Like the colors are really huge. They're really saturated. You know, it is a really pretty game. And it's that stuff is really cool. It's just a shame that there are so many barriers to get to it. The discrepancy here as far as like Steam reviews versus like Metacritic reviews is really high. This game's very popular on Steam and not very popular on Metacritic. And I wonder how much of it has to do with like just you know, gamers being a little bit more open to or interested in the novelty of VR. Yeah. For its own sake. I think that's kind of what's at work. Like if you have a VR headset, you're playing in a really small pool and you have to justify that purchase somehow. You know, like nobody's going to want to believe that like this thing they bought this very expensive toy for is not very good.
Right.
But I feel like that's kind of what's going on here. It's like this is a very beautiful tech demo without much else to it.
And to that end, I kind of wish there was a kind of, you know, deathless mode that you can kind of just experience.
Me too.
Even if I had a VR headset, I just want to go through this. And I understand that's kind of against the whole Lovecraftian everything's antagonistic type deal, but I want to see all the environments, and I don't want to bother with the mechanics. They're not entertaining to me.
It's kind of against that idea, but it kind of would work too. Like this, you're just being brought along against your will into this thing. Like I think that would be really cool, and they should add that kind of mode. Yeah. Like and even if it doesn't, then it's just a very short movie that you can look around in. But that's what is going to be good in VR. Yeah. You know, like that is, to me, like that is my big problem with VR is like, it's a very limited type of game that it can support. And one of them is this just kind of like experience, you know, and like this game would have worked way better at that. And this attempt to gamify it kind of fucks it up.
I agree.
I watched a YouTube of somebody going through the entire game with no commentary. And that was really cool. Like Excellent. You get to see a lot of cool shit in the end. And that is really neat. And they obviously like, again, it's you know, budget priced. Like it's like, you know, $5 not on sale. Like it's cheap. So it's priced for something that is a kind of a bite-sized experience, but it doesn't have like an endless runner kind of feel or anything to it. Right. That you maybe want. So, I mean, I think if you have a headset, like you could do worse, but you could probably do better as well. And without a headset, like if this ends up being, you know, 80% off on a sale, like it's probably worth $1 to check out some of the cool graphical shit this is doing.
Totally.
Yeah. But otherwise, it was not a game I liked very much. I'm not going to go back to it.
That's that. I think that's pretty much sums up my feel on it too. Yeah. So let's move on to The Consuming Shadow. So this game is it was released November 20th of 2015. So it's a couple years old at this point. Although I think it might have been
a couple months old.
Or yeah, sorry, couple months old. And I think it might have had some early access before that, to my understanding. But it's a game by Yahtzee, the infamous game reviewer. who has done some adventure games prior to this, which I've played a couple of them. They're actually pretty decent adventure games.
They are good. I think they're good. Those are good games as well.
But this is him stepping into more of a roguelike type deal. This is kind of takes FTL style gameplay to some extent, but puts it in a Lovecraftian setting, and very like true to Lovecraft, I feel like.
Yes. Yeah. This is this is another game that I'm probably not going to play tons of after we leave here, but it does more right, and the stuff it does right is really interesting. It's one of these games that's like a fatal flaw kind of thing. Like as a thought experiment, Nick, imagine the Consuming Shadow with good combat.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be great?
It would be great.
It would be a great game. Like it's like everything that surrounds it is so cool, because the part that you know, it is like FTL or like one of these games, but it's that mixed with like Clue.
Yeah.
Like it is about like these kind of like deductive reasoning. You get these statement of facts, you know, these conditions, like this god is involved with this element. This is this god's color. And you're trying to put these things together it's like a board game.
Right.
And that's awesome.
That is good.
Yeah. That's super cool. It's like the way it falls down though, and the way it is just so hard and kind of like, you know, a lot of unfair deaths is the combat, which is just very amateurish and is like really shitty.
Yeah, it is really shitty. I feel like it actually is kind of close to tabletop Call of Cthulhu in an extent. Like, you can't fight these beings without also taking hits, but it doesn't come across in any good way. Like, it just feels unfair and shitty.
Well, and it also, what it ends up being is that you don't have any other way to deal with them. So like when you run into one of these things, it's in your way because it's a side-scrolling perspective. Mm-hmm. And if you leave a room and a monster is still alive, you get a sanity hit.
Yep.
From this. So like you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, which that is like very, very Lovecraftian. But at the same time, like it just ended up being kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
And even if this was like, if you made it menu based, like the same results, right? It's just a very, very hard game where like this thing, but just made it menu based, so I don't have to feel like my fingers are failing me.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot.
I agree,
because I don't mind that you die so much. Like I don't mind that like it is hard, because every time you die, it's like Isaac, where you unlock some stuff. Yeah, you level up a general thing, you unlock new characters, new abilities for the start of the game and stuff. Like there's a lot here. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I would say is really like actually kind of excellent about this game that comes across is the writing is really good.
It is.
Like there are these little like random encounters that come up. So we should say the premise of the game. So you are a paranormal investigator. You have 60 hours before this ritual is going to happen, but you don't know what's happening. Mm-hmm. And you're in England, and there's kind of this thing called the Consuming Shadow that is the presence of the shadow that is in England. So you are gathering clues by kind of doing these little missions, like gathering clues and resources to try to figure out what the god, like what the spell is to stop summoning.
There's 3 gods that are in consideration, basically. In some way these 3 gods are involved, but there's only one of them that is actually the true bad guy that you need to banish in order to stop all this.
Yes.
And he's coming through, and you have to figure out the banishing spell and get to Stonehenge, which is where he's going to be coming through, and cast the right banishing spell after learning all the kind of elements to it, and then finishing it off with the correct god who you need to banish.
Yes, and the information you're getting from doing these missions, like it's all randomly generated. So it's like, this mission has been taken over by these creatures, or this town rather. This town, there is a cult in that's been found in an old warehouse, things like that. And then you find these little pieces of information. The pieces of information are like, this god is the enemy of this god. Mm-hmm. So then later you might find a piece of information that says the enemy, the god that's being summoned, is a friend of this god. So you can process of elimination notebook where you can cross out pieces of information. They're no longer relevant.
And then you got to figure out which sigil he's assigned to, and then use that in your spell casting at Stonehenge.
Yes, and there's you are constantly you have these different resources that are constantly running down. You have time, and it takes a lot of time to drive between areas. You have health and you have sanity that you can refill. Sanity only temporarily, but you can refill these things, and different things affect them. So combat obviously affects your health, and sanity as well if you run away from monsters. And these random encounters affect you. You also get text messages, and some of those are really great. Like you'll get text messages from unknown numbers that are just like blood chilling shit that affects your sanity. And it's really obvious that they're just random encounters, and it's a 50% chance of it being good, 50% chance of it being bad. It's like fucking around with elves and shit in or the treasure chest in Darkest Dungeon. you know. But it's really cool, and they're well written. Like they're actually like pretty good. And atmosphere again is like really good in this game. Like it is spooky. This idea of being out on the highway at night, driving night, no matter what. You know, you have 60 hours, but it's never daytime, and you see these little shapes go by in the highway. You know, on the side of the road, that suggest things that are in this town as you're kind of losing your mind. Your family texts you and tries to get you to stop, you know, pursuing what you're pursuing. Like it's really cool.
It is very good. Like all the writing is super solid. I really like the effects of having low sanity. Where like there's a couple really good ones where like you get kind of a mission statement every time you get into one of the dungeon areas, and the text will just keep changing if your sanity's low. But one of the best parts is when you're making a like dialogue choice, and your sanity is really low, they'll keep randomly switching to kill yourself.
Yes.
And if you aren't timing your clicks and watching what you're doing, you'll accidentally kill yourself because your sanity's so low.
You'll start to, and then you'll start putting your gun to your face, and then you have to tap. You can get out of it at least once by kind of tapping your way down. But it's just kind of a quick time event, but it's really kind of cool and subtle. Mm-hmm. It's similar. There's a similar thing where you could do that in Dark Corners of the Earth, where if your sanity was low enough, you didn't want to have a loaded gun on you. If your character got out your gun to fight an enemy, if your sanity was low enough, you'd shoot yourself, which I really love. I'm always going to be down for that.
Yep.
So when you're exploring these dungeons, it's these side-scrolling perspective with a little map in the corner, and it's really simple graphics, which is fine because it's a one-man kind of game. But the part where we're talking about it sucks is just like you have ammo. Shooting things is fine. It's not fun, but it's like it's fine. But you're going to run out of ammo very fast and have to resort to melee combat. Yep. And melee combat, there's no sense of like hit detection. Like you don't know when you're getting in a hit necessarily, and you have no defensive vocabulary at all. Like you have nothing you can do about things coming at you.
Right.
There's no dodge. There's no block. There's no duck. There's nothing like that.
So it's just kind of spam melee at the right timings to hit stuff, and you're going to get hit in the meantime.
Yes.
There's nothing that isn't also going to damage you when it touches you.
Yes, and that's the bummer. Like that's the big like downfall to this game. I think that like makes it hard to necessarily recommend or like want to play, just because I know I'm going to get, like, if I have kind of bad luck with these dungeon layouts, that's going to happen. To me. But there's just like, there's so much space for like really cool shit that can happen. Like I had a random encounter where there was a bunch of people who were kind of glassy eyed crossing the highway. And like it gave me an option. It's like, do you want to wait for them to pass, or do you want to plow through them? And I had been burned a couple times like stopping my car.
Right.
Which can have permanent effects. Like one guy stole my car and then he did something to the engine, so I couldn't go at top speed anymore, which means my time, like, it took me longer to get everywhere, which meant I was under the gun more. So these guys, I'm like, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to try to plow through these cultists, assuming they were cultists. But one of them got caught in my wheel well and stopped the car. And then they say they drag you out and you black out. And then I was in a dungeon that wasn't related to a town. I was in like this park and I had to get back to my car. And then like, it was really hard. I got back to my car and they're like, yeah, they leave the car undamaged. You don't know if they needed the car or if they just wanted something from within it, but you can't worry about it now, and like, maybe if I gone through and looked at my supplies, maybe something was stolen there as well. Or they just needed my notes because they're a scary cultist.
That's crazy.
It's super cool. Like some of that stuff is really, really neat. Like there are some neat systems in this game.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's seriously just the combat, just the dungeon crawling combat that really knocks it aside for me.
And I never want anything to be turn-based. Like I'm never going to argue for that, but like I think this would be better if it were turn-based rather than reflex-based.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's really cool. It could be improved. I think it's out of early access officially.
Yeah.
But it's like, those are fixable problems. Who knows if it'll happen, but maybe he'll do a sequel that changes that, or maybe there's something I'm missing and there's a way to do combat that's not quite as obnoxious.
Yeah, or maybe some of the characters are a little better at that or something, and this character's better at other stuff, the starting one. Because I never bothered with any, I don't think I unlocked anybody else, or if I did, I didn't bother with them.
I think I got to level 3 or 4 in my character level of this, and I unlocked like better starting money, and then I think I unlocked a new sign, because you can be born under different signs.
Yeah, I got that too
in the beginning, which is cool. Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool systems to it. So there's definitely a lot here for someone who can get past the combat in a way that we couldn't.
Mm-hmm. And it is that kind of thing. I don't think you're supposed to make it your first couple runs. You're supposed to get a little bit better.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I had no problems dying and like having to have incremental improvements between runs. That was not a problem.
No, exactly. I'm just clarifying that. Like, where that's not the problem. It's just the fighting part is not very fun.
Yeah.
So it's like on your way to getting to that incremental improvement, you're having less fun than maybe you would want to, because of that issue. So
agree.
Yeah.
All right, Gary. What else do you want to talk about?
I don't know. This is a shorty.
This is a shorter one.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's okay. Dark Souls 3 comes out today. We put these episodes here, did these 2 games that would be very easy because of that. Mm-hmm. We have got cool stuff coming down the line, though we shouldn't have to take a Dark Souls break, I don't think. I think we're going to be okay. For the next episode, Zachary has been kind enough to gift us both copies of Enter the Gungeon, mm-hmm. Which is a game we've both been looking forward to as Isaac fans. And we're going to do a whole episode on Enter the Gungeon because it seems like it supports it.
Yeah, I've been playing quite a bit of it, and I'm having my fun with it. So thank you very much, Zach, because that was a huge gift and very kind of you.
Yeah, it's very, very nice of you, and I'm looking forward to that. Otherwise, again, we can the show, start out as 20 to 30 minutes. This one's going to be closer to that 20, and that's going to be okay.
Yeah. So let's get to some admin stuff real quick.
Yeah. If you like the show, you can support the show financially on patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. That is a huge help, and even a little bit, like $2 gets you access to our Slack channel where we discuss the games that we do and games we're doing, and there's been tons of Gungeon chat if you have Gungeon fever. Yes. And otherwise, though, that's where we talk about the games that we do for the show.
Yep, and if you have any suggestions or just want to chat with us, by other means, you can always find us on facebook.com/checkitoutcomrade, on Twitter at Comrade Podcast, or you can submit stuff through the forum on Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you like the show, tell your friends about it.
Absolutely. Ratings and reviews on iTunes.
Yep. Get the word out. It is very, very nice. Yep.
100 emoji 100.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Good night.